Hi, I'm Luke from BagMe, and in today's video, we're going to be showing you how we make woven labels. I'm at GloryTex Vienna now, and GloryTex have been our preferred supplier for label making for many years, and they don't only make labels, they make lots of other stuff that we're going to show you in this video. They've given us full exclusive access so we can see the entire process of how these labels are made, and I say, let's get started. When we send in artwork to GloryTex, it's in this office that they take that artwork and convert it into their own format that can be uploaded into the Jacquard weaving machines. Now there's 38 machines running out there and it's super loud, so I'm going to do all my talking out here. So the first thing you're going to notice on these machines is the huge black, what we call beam of yarn on the back of the machine. And actually there's 9,400 strands of yarn on that beam that are threaded through the machine. One full beam can make about 4 million of this small label, and actually this is why most labels you see, the base color is black or white. Now you can have red if you want, but you're probably going to have to make 4 million labels, and most brands are not making 4 million labels. So we're not going to show you the setup of that beam, but what we are going to show you is the colors that present themselves on the design of the label. Now on our label, the most common color is the orange. We also have yellow, there is some black, and also some white. And it's that process now that we're going to show you being set up on the machine right now. So I'm going to pop in these earplugs and get out there and show you what's happening. The first step in setting up the Jacquard machine is to thread the weft yarn into the loom. Here, Han is adding cones of yarn in our brand colors onto the racks, and instead of threading them through the loom one by one, she saves time by tying the new yarn onto the yarn from the previous job, and then she pulls it through the system. A Jacquard weaving loom is very different to a standard loom. A standard loom can only produce basic repeating patterns because groups of warp yarns move up and down together. Now as you can see here, every second strand of warp yarn is lifted while others stay down. And the space between the raised and lowered yarns is called the shed. Next, a weft yarn is inserted through the shed using a shuttle. Once the yarn is through, it is pulled tight and then pushed tightly back into place by a huge comb-like device called a reed. A Jacquard loom is much smarter than a standard loom, as it can move each strand of yarn up or down individually. This allows it to create super detailed and colourful patterns, words, and even images made of thread into the fabric. The box you see above the machine is the controller, which is responsible for moving each of the individual warp threads up or down. The control box is connected to the loom by these green lines, which at the end have small eyelets where single strands of yarn are threaded through. Here's how the Jacquard machine makes woven labels. This mechanism at the side of the loom is called a yarn selector, which picks the right color thread just at the right moment. Then a tool called a rapier, which is like a mechanical shuttle, grabs the yarn and carries it halfway through the shed, where it is passed off to a second rapier and pulled through to the other side of the loom. The yarn is then cut, the reed pushes the weft yarn back tightly into place, creating a new row of pixels. After each pass, the loom moves the warp thread up or down to set up for the next row. Each row adds what looks like a tiny set of pixels to the design, building the pattern bit by bit. This all happens super fast, about 10 times per second, to create detailed fabric with intricate designs. Both standard looms and Jacquard weaving looms create sheets of fabric usually between 140 and 160 centimeters wide. However, the labels we're making today are only 2 centimeters wide. So these small electric hot knives are installed into the loom to cut the fabric sheets into strips as it rolls out of the machine. And this is how modern Jacquard weaving machines make high quality woven labels. Now that we've got that machine set up out there and running, I want to tell you a little bit more about GloryTex, because GloryTex are doing a lot more than just making woven labels. GloryTex have been in business since 2002, and as you can see on these display boards here, there's a wide range of printing technologies available, starting with offset printing. There's all sorts of possibilities with offset printing. GloryTex makes product brochures, hang cards, hang tags, even complete with the string on them. We even make packaging for some of our customers' products, and there's all sorts of point-of-sale materials that can be made with offset printing. Another important thing I have to mention here is sustainability, because all of the things that you see here on this board can be ordered in certified recycled materials. Another reason why most of the big brands and factories around here are working with GloryTex. Another really cool thing they do here at GloryTex is heat transfer labels and logos. So a lot of brands these days are using these heat transfer labels for their logos, but not only that, they're also replacing labels and using heat transfer labels inside bags and other products. So whereas screen printing is applied directly to the fabric, the heat transfer labels are actually first printed to another material, and afterwards, this is transferred onto the fabric and heat pressed. And this gives us a much more durable bond than most screen printing does. And we have so many more options when it comes to designs and textures. For example, we have a choice of how the surface might feel like. Some feel like silicone, some can feel very smooth and shiny, some even have a felt kind of finish, and we can even get reflective finishes and things like this from the heat transfers. Another really cool machine they've got in the factory out here behind me is a multicolor sticker printer. Now this sticker printer can do all sorts of stickers, ranging from barcode stickers, which are just simple black print, all the way to really fancy high quality branding stickers, like these ones here from Diamond Skiing. So I'm going to go back out there and check out what's happening with our labels. A batch of labels is now ready, so Han is cutting the roll from the loom, and the labels that are still on the loom are stuck to a new roll so the machine can keep running. Meanwhile, this new batch will be taken on to the next process. So these labels have just come off the machine, just freshly been made, and right now they're on the shaft in 80 different rolls. And Leah, her job here is to connect all of these rolls into one continuous line. And the reason is because this needs to be fed into the next machine, which is going to starch and iron the labels. The next step here is that these labels are going to be starched and ironed, because right now they're a little bit wrinkly and we want them to be nice and smooth like these ones, and ironed nice and flat. So rather than weaving the machine from scratch, this guy here is literally just connecting our labels to the previous batch, and that's all going to get dragged through the system. So the first step of this machine is to untangle all of the labels. So they're being fed into this system, and literally as they're going through here, they're just getting straightened out to make sure that they're fed into the glue basin down the bottom here, nice and straight. As you just saw then, Sua just put the starch in the system at the bottom here. Now as the labels come out of the starch, they're literally just being ironed. So they're going over these hot rollers, pulled under tension, and they're just basically flattened out through the system and ironed. So as you can see now, the MaxTrax labels are coming out here. Now if you want to come in here and have a look, you'll see that the labels are super flat, super smooth, and they have some structure to them now. So just to show you how important it is to starch and iron these labels, here's a perfect example of what the labels look like after this process and what they look like before. Big difference. After this, we're going to go over to the cutting area, and these labels are all going to be cut into little pieces like this one. So the reason why she's actually cutting and rejoining these rolls right now is because the next step of the process will be to feed these labels into the cutting machine. And previously, the labels were put together on top of each other and ultrasonically welded like this, so they can be fed through the gluing and ironing machine. It's not going to go through the cutting machine like this, so they need to be joined end to end. And she's putting red tape around there so the cutters can actually see when the join is coming. This is going to take a little while to do, so we're going to go and check out some printed labels that we're making here at the moment for our BagMe samples. In this room, they create the rubber stamps that we use to make printed labels. And the stamps are going to be made of this material here, which is a rubber material with a UV sensitive resin on there. And the way that it works is, a film like this one is actually placed on top of this material. It's placed into this machine here, and UV light is shined through. Now, where the light comes through in these negative areas, it hardens the resin, and that creates the stamp. After the UV process, this material is going to be taken out. It's going to be put into this soap and water solution here, and all of the resin that wasn't hardened is going to be washed out, and then we're going to be left with the stamp. And so our finished stamp, here it is, and it's still a bit warm. So this one here is going to be rolled onto the machine outside, and we're going to go and show you how that's set up. You just saw Chung here, he cut the stamp in 3 parts. The reason is because this label is a 3-color label. We have the word sample in red, the BagMe website in blue, and the rest of the text in black. And he's obviously now just installing 3 different stamps on 3 different rollers, one for each color. So what you're looking at now is he's just aligning all of the stamps with the non-woven material that we're printing on. First, he's focusing on the black, and right now he's aligning the blue. Okay, what you can see here now is Chung is aligning the blue color, because right now the BagMe website is coming out above the black text, and it's actually going to be below it. It's the red sample text that's going to be in that position there. So right now he's just doing all of the alignment on the machine. This guy here just had everything set up, all 3 different colors aligned in 5 minutes flat. Pretty impressive. In here, she's responsible for QC. She's making sure that the ink has got full coverage. And what she's doing right now is she's checking the first printed labels against my original artwork.
They're pretty serious about quality here, so everything has to get double checked and signed off by a supervisor before the team can continue with production.
You know, one thing I really love about the Vietnamese people is the Vietnamese ingenuity. Check this out. A takeaway chopstick with some paper jammed in there, and it does the job perfectly. Before we go over and see the other labels being cut, I want to show you this machine. It's another label printing machine, but this machine uses screen printing in multiple layers rather than using the stamp and ink system that you saw on the previous machine. Now we use this machine when we need higher end labels. We have a lot more color options and we can get better color fastness because the ink is baked onto the material in these chambers here. So I guess the other labels are almost done. Let's go over and check out the cutting. So this page here has the original artwork that I created. Very important to draw one-to-one for all you designers out there. With one of the labels on here, and you can see that everything matches up perfectly. Okay, as you can see, the labels here are traveling along here, being pulled underneath this hot knife where they're cut, and then they get dragged here and folded in this little mechanical mechanism, and then they come down here along this little slide, and here Fung does the final QC on the labels. So I told you earlier in the video that we weren't able to show you the full setup of the Jacquard machine, but I kid you not, this is not staged. We've just been told we have a once in a month opportunity to see a beam being changed over right now. So we're going to get over into the Jacquard machine room because this is going to be cool.
There's over 9,400 strands of yarn on this huge beam, and manually rethreading the loom one strand at a time could take days. So here's the process they use at GloryTex when changing the beam to minimize the loom's downtime. First, they use a large clamp to lock the yarn and keep it all lined up in its original order. Then they cut the yarn and remove the old beam. Next, they roll in the new beam, jack it into place, and reattach the bearings. Once the new beam has been attached to the machine, they carefully comb and sort the new yarn to align it as closely as possible with the yarn that's still in the loom. A temporary rail is then put into place and the yarn is stretched and clamped over it. Then this little robot is installed onto the rails. What this little robot does is it takes one piece of the new yarn and ties it to a piece of the old yarn. Once the robot is set up, it takes about an hour to work its way across the loom and tie each of the 9,400 strands together. Once the robot has completed its work, it's packed away and the rail is removed. Now that the old yarn and the new yarn have been tied together, it's simply a matter of pulling the new yarn through the machine and checking for any errors the little robot may have made.
Every thread of yarn here has one of these sitting on top of it, and this little metal piece here gets suspended on top of a piece of yarn. And what that's doing is it's holding tension on the yarn. Yep. As it's being fed through the machine. And these are the parts that you see dancing around when the machine is working. Now what they've just been doing now is they're looking for loose threads, like threads that haven't got the right tension through the machine. And they can actually see this when they tighten everything up, and the ones of these that are dropped down, the threads are loose. And then they grab this piece of yarn and they feed it through here, pull it tight, feed it to the person on the other side, and they pull tension through it. And they're doing this, they're checking everything basically one by one. It's really amazing. Okay, I just found an example myself on the machine here. See this as they tension it up, this little metal piece here is down. Okay, so what we do is we move these aside, And we're looking for the piece of yarn that's connected to that, and that's this one here. So this piece of yarn here is loose, okay? And in a second, they're going to take this and pull it through the other side of the machine.
Once all 9,400 strands of yarn have been individually checked and have the right tension, the machine will be run and continually monitored until the team is sure that everything is running smoothly. And that's how you change the warp beam on a modern computer-controlled Jacquard loom.
Now all of the yarn is under tension, and as you can see here, each one of these little metal forks is suspended by a single piece of yarn. Damn, we were so lucky to get that footage right at the last minute and finished just in time to go home. We'd like to thank GloryTex for giving us full and open access here so we could show you how these labels were made. We're going home now, so is everybody else. You're going to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.